All right, everybody, welcome in to Load the Box. I am your host, Jordan Hawthorne. I am joined, as always, by the wonderful at Will underscore bad. Oh, no, not underscore, just Will
No
Bad Loose.
underscore.
You see, there's no underscore. I'm getting back into old habits and blah, 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 whatever. We're coming out of the bye week. Hopefully the Vikings don't stumble out like we seem to. You will notice tonight we're having a little bit of video issues. We've been troubleshooting for about 15 minutes. We wanted to get going. There's just a little bit of lag on Will's side. The audio is coming through in real time, so as if you're watching this live, you'll get to hear Will's thoughts uncensored, uncut. His video, however, is going to be a little bit behind, so he's not doing an amazing ventriloquist act. He is just dealing with some technical difficulties. It might be on my end. I don't know. We're going to have to figure this thing out. But the Vikings play the Arizona Cardinals. They absolutely slaughtered the bye week, getting out of it with only one arrest, which is pretty good for the team. And yeah, I mean, I guess I just have to ask, Will, how was your bye week? Didn't do a Wednesday show, didn't do a Monday show, and here we are.
Yeah, it was strange and a little bit sad not having Vikings football this last weekend, and I think especially considering how well things have been going, and it's always encouraging to have a 5-1 start, right? I mean, I feel like in the years past, it's like exhale at the bye week. You're just like grateful to get to it, and you can kind of take a breath and see if you can regroup. This time around, it feels different, right? It's a good feeling, being where we're at. So a little weird having a bye week kind of in the middle of a winning streak. But hey, I mean, the team hopefully got some rest. Our division didn't have a very good week. Chicago got a win, but the Packers lost their third in a row. The Lions seem to be in a free fall. The NFC is wide open. So it's go time for the Vikings, and excited to kind of open our unofficial second half of the season. How about you? How was the long weekend without Vikings football?
Yeah, I was kind of telling you about it in the little before parts of the show while we were troubleshooting. I ran through some HDMI cables. I did all this stuff basically just that way I could play my first ever Legend of Zelda game on my TV upstairs, and I'm enjoying it. It's a fun time, and yeah, that's kind of all I did. I watched football on Sunday, but I was really angry because my fantasy team lost to the only winless team in the league. So I did what the Vikings did last season with the Lions. I faced a really bad team, didn't have a win, and he beat me by about 7 points, and I had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who got a concussion after his first catch. So not the best football week overall for me. But I do want to, like you said, kind of, I don't want the Vikings to lose that heat that they had, that 5-1 record, the best record of Kirk Cousins' career. I bought a Kirk Cousins jersey. It's a fun season. We're getting into it. So let's get into this Arizona game. Let's see if we think collectively, as the Load the Box hive mind, how this game's going to go, what matchups we're excited for. I'll go ahead. I'll punt it over to you. What is your favorite matchup in this game? I think that's the best place to start off. What gets you excited? Or what position group, I guess, is gonna make the play that makes you jump out of your seat and say, like, that's why this team is 5-1, gonna be 6-1, or maybe gonna be 5-2.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange game. Like, going into this game, we've had, most of our games, you're kind of able to distinguish a certain matchup or a certain position group, like you're talking about, that is kind of the key, right? If the run game hums, the team's going to have a good day. If the pass rush gets home, it's going to be a good day. This week's a little strange. The Cardinals are sort of average at everything. They don't have many like glaring weaknesses. Even their run defense, which they're technically, I think they're ranked 27th in run stop win rate, so not very good in terms of winning at the line of scrimmage. They're still only allowing about 4.2 yards a carry or something like that. So they're not getting gashed. it's kind of a strange sort of situation there, kind of a dichotomy. So it's kind of it's a little more of a challenging matchup, I think, honestly, than I think a lot of Vikings fans give it credit for. You read Vikings Twitter and everyone's saying, if we lose to the Cardinals, the sky's going to fall and all these things. And you and I were talking a little bit earlier today, and I don't think the Cardinals are necessarily a team to be taken lightly. They got DeAndre Hopkins back. Robbie Anderson is kind of new to the fold, and so he might get eased in a little bit. He only played about 12 snaps last week, but granted, that was 2 days after he was signed via trade, so he'll probably see more field this week. But I don't necessarily think the Cardinals are a doormat like a lot of fans kind of are thinking and hoping they might be. I think this is going to be a really competitive game. We know that Ed Donatel struggles with mobile quarterbacks. It's kind of been proven historically. And this year it's already proven itself out a little bit, whether it was Jalen Hurts or even Justin Fields had a pretty good day against us as well. So I think if anything, that's kind of the matchup that I'm looking forward to watching, I guess, is whether or not the Vikings can keep Kyler Murray sort of in a box and make him uncomfortable in the pocket. Now, one last thing I'll say on that I want to get your perspective is there's not necessarily, at least this season, a correlation between Murray running the ball and the Cardinals winning games. It's not necessarily like, if he runs, if he scrambles, the Cardinals are more successful. Like, they're about the same in terms of wins and losses. However, something that the Vikings can and need to do is when Kyler gets a little bit of pressure, he generally runs backwards. I don't know if you've noticed that about him. He gets kind of like, I think he gets a little, he's very confident in his speed, which he should be, but also he gets a little bit kind of, I don't want to say, almost like cocky with it. Like, I can outrun anybody, so I'm just going to run straight back, and then I'm going to loop back around and see what I can find. But the thing that the Vikings can and need to do is when he does that, when he does his escape the pressure and run straight back thing, keep him contained within the tackles. Because if he gets to the outside, he's going to beat you every time. But if we're able to keep him within the tackle box, he is very prone to bad judgment, bad decisions. He'll throw a lot of balls up for grabs. So long way of saying that's the matchup I'm interested in for Sunday.
No, absolutely. I think that is the. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, and it's not coming to me. The one that's coming to mind is like that's the big red button. Like that is the one that it's like you have to slam your hand on it. You can't let Kyler Murray run around and buy time because I don't care how good your secondary is. If the quarterback is just making time, he's going to pick you apart. We just saw Pat Mahomes and that Kansas City offense put up like 550 yards or some stupid number like that and almost hang, I think it was like, what they score, like 34 or something. Like they were one touchdown away from dropping a 50 bomb on the best defense in the league, arguably. So like you said, you have to contain him. Kyler Murray is, I think, the biggest threat to the Vikings being 6-1, and everyone getting to keep debating, like, is it good to win close games, blah, 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 all that stuff, because I'd much rather be having those conversations than last year's. This team's so good, like, we should be, this and this. The 2 wins after 6 games, that's not indicative of how good we are. At some point, it becomes you are what your record says you are. So I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna stay on Arizona's offensive side of the ball. But you were talking about containing Kyler. I think a big part of that, obviously, the pass rush has to do its job. I do think that the secondary has to handle DeAndre Hopkins. It felt like watching Thursday Night Football last week, which granted Arizona got 2 pick sixes, I think, in that game. It felt like every time Arizona had the ball, it was just DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Eno Benjamin got a carry or two. It just felt, I think he had like 10 catches or 7 he had a high number of catches for his first game back after a PED suspension. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this secondary looks against DeAndre Hopkins, especially considering the kinds of routes that they have him running. He's not really a go out guy. He's not the fastest receiver, but what makes him so good is his ability to create separation with route running, with a little bit of physicality, and that whole, archetype is the word I was looking for. That archetype of wide receiver. So the playing 10 yards off thing isn't going to work against him. O'Connell made some interesting quotes, or had an interesting quote in his press conference today about letting Patrick Peterson, kind of giving him the green light to start playing a little bit of press man, or a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage on every play. And I think that that's crucial for the Vikings defense moving forward. I actually do kind of have a take for later in the show about, like, let's just embrace the bend don't break defense, and good things can happen. Let's just ride with it and see what happens. But I do think that in this game specifically, you can't just let Kyler Murray drop back, let the plays go exactly as planned. You have to get him off script, and then you have to contain Kyler Murray when he goes off script. And then all of a sudden, Kyler Murray starts getting desperate. He starts throwing up some Hail Marys or whatever you want to call them. And Harrison Smith, some of our safeties, linebackers, everybody can start getting involved, creating turnovers, win the game, get to 6-1, move on to the next week. I guess the logical conclusion is to flip it over one more time. What on the offensive side of the ball for the Vikings are you excited about? But you don't have to be excited about it. What scares you about Arizona? Just what do you want to talk about here on a Wednesday night about the Vikings offense against Arizona's defense?
I think and I saw Kirk Cousins talking about this earlier today as well, or earlier this week. Their aggression is very interesting. It's not necessarily always effective. So they blitz at, what's the rate? Where did I have that number? They blitz one of the top few in the league. I don't have the number right in front of me in terms of percentage of plays. But they only get to the quarterback like 20% of the time, or they only apply pressure about 20% of the time, which is lower tier of the league. So I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but basically what I'm saying is they blitz a lot, but they aren't always effective in it. The other thing that they're aggressive in is ripping the ball out. They've caused multiple fumbles. I think they might have had 2 or 3 in week 1, like something crazy like that. They're the kind of prototypical ball hawks on defense. And so that's something that I don't know if it's necessarily something that I'm concerned about, because, if Arizona blitzes but they don't get pressure, it's honestly, we should have a field day on the offensive side of the ball. But on the other hand, the Vikings have struggled at times this season picking up the blitz. Not always, but that Philadelphia game was one where we didn't pick up the blitz at all. And that was a brutal game. So that's something that I'm interested in watching, is the Arizona aggression. And, if their blitzes are getting home or getting close to home, how can we mitigate that with screens or hitting the hot route, draw plays, things like that to kind of keep them off balance. And then the other side of that is, the receivers, the backs have to be able to wrap the ball up when you're getting brought down to the ground, because Arizona's going to go for it. So I think that's just something we need to be ready for. That's an every week sort of thing, but I think maybe this week more than others.
I can't speak to this because I live in Cincinnati and I don't go to Vikings practices, and I'm not I would assume that the receivers and the backs practice that a lot because of the way the defense is kind of shifted to this, hey, we're going to bend, don't break. We're going to try and punch the ball out every time we tackle. We're going to whip at it, punch at it. I feel like there's an emphasis on, the old peanut punch on the defensive side. So I'm assuming the defense is out there. I would assume the first couple days of practices, it was just the defense just fumble after fumble, and finally the offense was like, we can't win this. We got 2 hands, the whole thing. So I guess we'll see. I like that. What I want to point out, and I have two things here. The Vikings are on pace for the most 3 and outs, not the most, but for more 3 and outs this season than they had last season. That's not a statistic that any Vikings fan wants to hear when we switch off of old crusty, mean Mike Zimmer who just run the ball. Oh, that's why we're going 3 and out so much. Now we're going 3 and out with Kevin O'Connell, who won a Super Bowl with the Rams offense. What's going on? What exactly is going on? Is it O'Connell's play calling in certain spots? Is it Kirk Cousins? Is it, hell, let's blame Dalvin Cook for something. Like, whose fault is it that we're getting all these 3 and outs? So that's actually, this is probably cheating because, we're trying to talk about the on-the-field stuff, but Kevin O'Connell is just like 3 feet on the sidelines. He's pacing up and down them. O'Connell has to be effective and has to call a complete game here. The other stat that I want to bring up, the Vikings average 5 or 6 points per game, I think. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not average. I think the Vikings have scored 12 points total in the third quarter of games this season. They come out of halftime flat and dull and bad, and that's what's led to so many of these hashtag comebacks is the fact that we let teams get back into it because they come out of halftime and they're hot and they're ready to go and they put points up and the Vikings offense starts putting all those 3 and outs on the board. So O'Connell needs to come out, call a complete game. I know that's a very football, old school, they played a complete game. We need a complete game from at least the offensive side. If the defense looks good, bad, whatever. We have an offensive coach. The offense should be expected to score points in the first, second quarter, come out hot at halftime, and then ice it in the fourth quarter. I'm okay if we don't score a lot in the fourth quarter. We should have leads by then. So it's going to come down to that. I really think that's my biggest matchup, and I'm just going to go ahead and transition into my game ball here. And I guess I'll do my score prediction, and I'll do this quickly. My game ball for the week, because I have the offensive side, I'm going to give it, I'm really torn between 2 guys on the offensive side of the ball, but I'm going to give it to Kirk Cousins. I really think Kirk Cousins is going to have a big day. I think O'Connell knows these stats. He knows we're going 3 and out a lot. He knows we're coming out flat in the third quarter. I think this is a game where the Vikings have I can't say they have a ton of points, but I think this is a game. Correction. Let me correct this because I know what graphic is about to pop up for my score prediction. If we want to win this game, this needs to be a game where we have 21 points or 24 points at halftime, and we end the day with double that amount of points. Foot on the gas from beginning to end. We just need to consistently move the ball, and we need to try and play a little bit of keep away and not let Kyler Murray dominate us. That being said, what do I think is going to happen realistically if I had to gamble on the game? The Vikings are going to lose this game 24-28. I think the Vikings are going to have... I'm one of those people, I think the Vikings can go out here and hang, 38 points on anybody. I think they have the talent to do that. I think they have the coaching to do that. They haven't shown me that they will or that they can, I guess. So right now, it's almost like a draft prospect. I see the potential. I see what they can be. They're not showing me that they're doing it. So until they do it, I'm going to assume that they're not going to. I'm going to go 24-28. If the Vikings want to win this game and they want to prove me wrong, O'Connell needs to be aggressive throughout the entire game. O'Connell needs to call a really good game. Kirk Cousins has to execute, and I think if O'Connell calls a really good game, Cousins will execute it, and maybe it can happen.
Just to kind of jump on that a little bit. I think to your point about O'Connell, it's kind of been the worst kept secret about the Vikings' success so far is that O'Connell hasn't put together a very good offensive game from start to finish yet. We've had 5 wins, and even the Green Bay game, we were firing on all cylinders for the first half, and then after that, it was kind of just survive. And Detroit game had long lulls. The Chicago game had a long lull. The Saints game was uneven, but good enough. The Dolphins game had 10 3 and outs. There's just been a lot of uneven offensive play. And, we've talked about this. It's somewhat understandable. The guy's a rookie head coach. You're going to have bumps. But I think this bye week will say a lot about his maturation as a coach early in this season. It's not the final chapter on him by any stretch. He's got plenty of years ahead of him as a coach, hopefully, to prove what kind of coach he can be. But having that extra week, this is a prime opportunity to show what you can do with an extra week of preparation.
Absolutely.
And then also to your point, talking about adjustments in preparation. That second half, third quarter, the halftime preparation or the halftime adjustments, I guess is maybe the better way to put it. Those have to be better. So those two sort of adjustments, the after the bye and the after halftime, those two things need to show us what Kevin O'Connell is made of, and I'm excited. I don't really have a prediction on it yet. I generally have a optimistic attitude in front of O'Connell, but I'm curious. I'm excited to see what we see on Sunday.
I kind of doinked up in terms of like timing and everything. I'm just going to go ahead and give my final thoughts, and then I'm just going to let you talk
Sweet.
Uninterrupted for a while. So my final thoughts, hope everybody had a good, safe, healthy bye week. The Vikings, got through it. Like, I joked about the one OS, but it looks like we only had like Ali Udo kind of got in some trouble, but nothing too major. We'll see what happens at the trade deadline that's coming up. That's going to be, a hoot and a half. And I'm seeing everybody say, oh, the Vikings should trade for Jerry Jeudy. Well, I hope they do. He's on my fantasy team. So we'll kind of see what happens, with the team going forward. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm glad to be back. Monday night we'll be back with a post-game show as always. And make sure you check out Unified Athletic Wear. They'll just I can't wait for like the fall stuff, the Thanksgiving and the Christmas stuff to come out. It's really cool stuff. I'm gonna have to get some of it and start wearing it on. I just feel weird. There's so much purple and yellow around me. Like I have to wear this stuff. Like how do I throw on a Cincinnati Red shirt? But of course, follow him on Twitter at WillBadLose. Check out the Bad Loser blog. Check out VikingsTerritory.com and PurplePTSD.com. And then follow the show on Twitter at LTBVikings. That is it for me. Will, I'll pass it off to you for a score prediction as well as a game ball and then your final thoughts.
Sweet. Thanks, Jordan. Yeah, couple things here. I'm going to start with game ball and I'll move into score prediction because I think they will influence the next one. I hinted at it earlier. I think Patrick Peterson's going to be the game ball recipient on the defensive side. Part of it is simply because he's playing his former team. And last year, he did next to nothing on the stat sheet. That doesn't mean he didn't have a good game, but there were no picks. I don't even think he had a tackle. I don't think he had any passes defended. Kyler Murray had a really good game against us last year. He did have 2 interceptions. However, his passer rating was around 120. He was that efficient otherwise. So I think Patrick Peterson is going to take it personally that last year he didn't and the defense didn't perform great against his former team. And I think I'll make an extra bold prediction. I think he's going to get an interception for the second game in a row. I think he's a wily old vet. And I think Kyler Murray, like I mentioned earlier, is prone to mistakes and prone to bad judgment at times. And I think Peterson's going to bait him into an interception. On that point, I think the Vikings do win this game. It was in my preseason predictions, I picked the Vikings beating the Cardinals in this game, and I can't waver on that now. I knew DeAndre Hopkins would be back, and so I can't change that just because he had a monster game last week. So I think it's going to be a close one. I mean, as the Vikings games are, like I said, I think this Cardinals team's better than we're giving them credit for. I think it's sort of it's not going to be super high scoring. I think it's going to be 26-21 Vikings. I see the Cardinals. I was very specific with the 21 for the Cardinals because this is something to watch. Last week, they had a replacement kicker because Matt Prater was on the injured list. He had I don't even know what he had, but he's still on the injured list today. And so if he doesn't play, they'll have Rodrigo Blankenship kicking again, who really struggled on Thursday Night Football. I think he might have missed 2 extra points. So I don't see them kicking a ton of field goals, is kind of what I'm getting at. I think they're going to be going for touchdowns. They're the most aggressive team in the league in terms of going for it on 4th down. So I think they're going to be going for it on 4th down in the red zone. They only convert about 57% of the time, so I don't think they're going to score a ton of touchdowns. It'll be a classic bend but don't break Vikings defensive game. Peterson will get the clutch interception. The Vikings offense, I think we'll see enough creativity and enough adjustments out of O'Connell to score enough points to win this game. I don't think it's going to be, oh my gosh, he's the second coming of Sean McVay, let's throw a parade. But I think we'll see enough to where there's going to be more optimism on the offensive side of the ball. Greg Joseph will get back on track with a few field goals. So 26-21 Vikings. Last thought, honestly, just on a personal note, congratulations to J.J. Watt, Arizona Cardinals defensive end. Him and his wife had their first baby over the weekend. Hope we see JJ on the field. He's a great guy and a great competitor, and just want to say congratulations to him. So
Absolutely.
that's all we got here. We're excited for the game Sunday. Hope everybody else is. All right, that's all. Skol, y'all.